The afternoon sun filtered through the gauzy curtains of Maya's living room, casting soft shadows across the scattered building blocks and picture books. She sat cross-legged on the floor, her wedding ring catching the light as she reached for another wooden block, watching as 4-year-old Sophie carefully stacked them into an increasingly precarious tower. "Higher!" Sophie demanded, her tongue poking out in concentration. "Are you sure?" Maya asked, her eyes twinkling. "It's getting pretty tall." "Higher!" Maya handed her another block, and they both held their breath as Sophie placed it on top. The tower swayed. Sophie's eyes went wide. Then, with a spectacular crash, the entire structure tumbled down, blocks scattering across the hardwood floor. Sophie's face crumpled, and for a moment Maya thought tears were coming. But then the little girl burst into delighted laughter, clapping her hands together. "Again, again!" Maya laughed too, that genuine, unburdened laugh that seemed to come so easily when she was with other people's children. "Okay, Munchkin, one more tower and then we need to clean up before your mom gets here." "Do we have to?" Sophie's lower lip jutted out in the universal language of 4-year-old disappointment. "Yes, we do." Maya began gathering blocks, making a game of it. "Come on, let's see who can collect the most blue blocks." As Sophie scrambled around the room, Maya felt that familiar warmth spreading through her chest, the pure, uncomplicated joy of a child's presence. She loved these moments. She loved the weight of a toddler in her lap during story time, the sticky sweetness of small hands in hers, the absolute certainty in a child's eyes when they looked at you and decided you were safe. But she also loved what came next. The doorbell rang at exactly 5:30 p.m. Maya smiled. Caroline was always punctual. "Mommy!" Sophie shrieked, abandoning the blocks and racing to the door. Maya opened it to find Caroline looking exactly as she had when she dropped Sophie off that morning, frazzled, exhausted, with the kind of bone-deep weariness that Maya had seen in so many parents' eyes. "How was she?" Caroline asked, even as Sophie launched herself at her mother's legs. "An angel, as always," Maya said, and it was true. "We did puzzles, played outside, built approximately 700 block towers. Each one fell down," Sophie interrupted gleefully, "and had grilled cheese for lunch. She's had a snack, but she'll probably be ready for dinner soon." Caroline's shoulders sagged with relief. "You're a lifesaver, Maya. Seriously, I don't know what I'd do without you." Maya waved her hand dismissively, but she felt that telltale flutter in her chest, the one that always came at this moment. The handoff, the return. "It's really no trouble. She's delightful." As Caroline gathered Sophie's backpack and shoes, Maya wrapped her small arms around Maya's legs. "Will you watch me again?" "Of course," Maya said, crouching down to Sophie's level. "I'll see you on Thursday, remember?" "That's forever away," Sophie pouted. "It's 2 days, Maya laughed, tapping Sophie's nose. "I promise you'll survive." She walked them to the car, helped buckle Sophie into her car seat, and stood on the sidewalk waving as they drove away. The moment the car turned the corner, Maya felt it, that delicious exhale, that sense of completion. She walked back into her house, surveying the slight disorder, a few stray blocks, some crayons on the coffee table, a juice cup on the kitchen counter. Nothing overwhelming, nothing permanent. She could clean this up in 10 minutes, and then her husband Daniel would be home from work, and they'd have a quiet dinner together, just the two of them. No bedtime battles, no midnight wake-ups, no years-long marathon of sacrifice and worry. Just the sweet, simple joy of a child's company, and then the equally sweet joy of her own space returned. Her marriage intact and undiluted, her life still her own. Maya had been married to Daniel for 4 years now, and they'd had the conversation about children before they even got engaged. She remembered that night clearly. They'd been dating for 2 years, and things were getting serious. They were at dinner, and Daniel had mentioned something about the future, about when we have kids, and Maya had felt her stomach drop. "Daniel," she'd said carefully, "we need to talk about that." "About kids?" "Yeah, about kids." They'd gone back to his apartment and had one of the most important conversations of their lives. Maya had been honest, brutally, vulnerably honest. She loved children. She'd been babysitting and nannying since she was a teenager. She found genuine joy in caring for them, playing with them, watching them grow and learn. But she didn't want her own. "I've watched what motherhood does to women," she'd told Daniel, her hands wrapped around a mug of tea. "I've seen my friends disappear into it. I've seen my sister struggle. I've watched the mothers I work for lose themselves piece by piece. And I know in my bones that it would do the same to me." "But you're so good with kids," Daniel had said, confused. "I am, because I get to give them back, because I can be fully present for a few hours and then return to myself. I love the kids I care for, Daniel, deeply, but I love giving them back to their parents even more. That moment when I hand them over and walk away, that's my favorite part." She'd watched his face carefully, looking for signs of disappointment or dismissal. This was the moment that had ended other relationships. The moment when men decided she just hadn't met the right person yet, or that she was too young to know her own mind, or that she'd change eventually. But Daniel had surprised her. "Okay," he'd said simply. "Okay? I mean, I thought I wanted kids because that's what you do, right? You get married, you have kids, that's the script. But if I'm honest with myself, I've never had a strong pull toward fatherhood. I like my life. I like my work, my hobbies, my freedom. And I really like the idea of building a life with you. Just you, without it having to include children." "Really?" Maya had felt tears forming. "You're not just saying that." "Really? But we should probably keep talking about this. Make sure we're really on the same page. Because this is a big decision." They'd talked about it for months. They'd gone to a few sessions with a therapist who specialized in life planning decisions. They'd both done the hard work of examining their assumptions, questioning where their desires came from, imagining their futures with brutal honesty. And they'd both come to the same conclusion. They wanted a child-free marriage. Not childless. That word implied something was missing. Child-free. A conscious choice, deliberately made. They'd gotten married at the courthouse on a Tuesday afternoon with just their closest friends present. No big wedding, no pressure, just a simple commitment to build a life together on their own terms. That had been 4 years ago. Maya heard Daniel's car pull into the driveway just as she finished wiping down the kitchen counter. She'd cleaned up Sophie's afternoon chaos quickly. It was amazing how much easier cleanup was when you knew a child wasn't going to immediately destroy everything again. "Hey, love," Daniel called as he came through the door, setting down his laptop bag. "Hey, yourself." Maya walked over and kissed him, that easy affection that came from 4 years of marriage. "How was your day?" "Long. The client changed their mind about the entire design direction, so we're basically starting from scratch." Daniel was an architect, and Maya had learned that client indecision was par for the course. "How was Sophie?" "Perfect, as always. We had a great afternoon." Daniel smiled, loosening his tie. "And you successfully returned her to her rightful owner?" "The sweetest moment of my day," Maya said, only half joking. It had become a running joke between them, a phrase Maya repeated often enough that Daniel had started saying it too. Returning them is the sweetest moment. But underneath the humor was a deeper truth that they both understood. Daniel walked over to the fridge and grabbed a beer. "Your mom called me today." "Oh no, what did she want?" "The usual. She wanted to know if I'd talked to you about reconsidering. She called you? That's a new level of intrusive. She said you've been married 4 years now, and that's usually when people start thinking seriously about children. Daniel took a sip of his beer. She also said that you love children so much, and she can't understand why you won't have your own. Maya felt the familiar frustration rising. 4 years of marriage, and her mother still thought this was a phase, still thought Maya would change her mind, would suddenly wake up one day and want to be a mother. What did you tell her? I told her that we'd made our decision together, and that it's not going to change, and that she needs to respect our choice. How did she take that? About as well as you'd expect. Lots of talk about grandchildren and legacy and how we'll regret it when we're old. Maya sat down at the kitchen table, suddenly tired. I love her, but I wish she could just accept this. Accept us. Daniel sat down across from her, reaching for her hand. I know, but you know how she is. She had kids, your brother had kids, and she can't imagine a different path being equally valid. But I work with kids every day. I love them. Why isn't that enough? Because it's not motherhood, Daniel said gently. And for her, motherhood was everything. So she can't understand how you can love children but not want that for yourself. Maya squeezed his hand, grateful as always that she'd found someone who understood, someone who didn't try to change her mind or convince her she was wrong, someone who wanted the same life she did. Thank you, she said, for backing me up with her. Always. We're a team. They made dinner together, stir-fry with vegetables and rice, moving around their kitchen with the easy choreography of long practice. They talked about their days, about Daniel's difficult client and Maya's afternoon with Sophie, about mundane things like whether they needed to buy more laundry detergent. It was ordinary. It was peaceful. It was exactly what Maya wanted. After dinner, they settled on the couch together, Maya's feet in Daniel's lap while they watched a documentary about the ocean. No interruptions, no bedtime routines, no one needing anything from them. Just quiet companionship and the freedom to be fully present with each other. This, Maya thought, was what she'd chosen, and she'd never been more certain it was the right choice. On Wednesday afternoon, Maya arrived at the Morrison house to pick up the twins from school. Ethan and Emma were 6 years old, full of energy and opinions about everything, from dinosaurs to why sandwiches cut diagonally tasted better than sandwiches cut straight down the middle. "Miss Maya!" they chorused when she appeared at the school pickup line. Their teacher, Mrs. Chen, smiled as the twins barreled toward Maya. "You're so lucky," she said. "What great kids." "Oh, they're not mine," Maya said automatically. "I'm their nanny." "Oh," Mrs. Chen looked embarrassed. "Sorry, I just assumed. Do you have kids of your own?" "No, just these guys a few times a week." "Well, you're wonderful with them. You'd make a great mother someday." Maya smiled non-committally and let the twins pull her toward the parking lot. She'd heard this so many times it barely registered anymore. People saw a woman with children and made assumptions. People saw that she was good with children and assumed motherhood was inevitable. They didn't understand that being good with children for a few hours was different from the relentless, consuming reality of parenthood. At the Morrison house, Maya set the twins up with their snacks, apple slices and crackers with cheese, exactly the way Sarah Morrison had specified, and listened to the cascade of their day. Emma's detailed account of a classroom argument about whether unicorns could be real if horses were real. Ethan's proud announcement that he'd helped a classmate who didn't understand the math worksheet. "You're very kind, Ethan," Maya told him, and watched his chest puff up with pride. They did homework together at the kitchen table, Maya providing just enough guidance to help them work through problems without doing the work for them. This was the art she'd perfected over the years, being present without being controlling, providing support without creating dependence. When Sarah arrived home at 5:30, looking exhausted as always, the twins immediately abandoned Maya to tell their mother about their day. Maya gathered her things, accepted Sarah's grateful thanks, and headed to her car. As she drove away, she felt it again, that satisfying sense of completion. She'd given Sarah a few hours of relief. She'd helped the twins with homework, listened to their stories, provided care and attention. And now she was done. Now she could go home to Daniel, to her own life, to her marriage that remained uncomplicated by the chaos and demands of children. That evening, she and Daniel went out for dinner, a spontaneous decision made at 5 minutes' notice because they could, because they had no one to arrange Tyler's childcare for, no bedtime routine to manage, no limitations on their freedom. At the restaurant, they ran into Daniel's coworker James and his wife, who was visibly pregnant. "Congratulations," Maya said warmly. "When are you due?" 6 weeks, James's wife, Ashley, said. "We're terrified and excited in equal measure." "It's going to be amazing," James said, though he looked almost as terrified as excited. "Scary, but amazing." "You two have kids?" Ashley asked. "No," Daniel said easily, "not for us." "Oh," Ashley looked surprised. "Are you thinking about it, or?" "We've decided not to have children," Maya said, her voice friendly but firm. She'd learned how to deliver this information, not defensive, not apologetic, just matter of fact. "Really?" James looked at Daniel like he'd grown a second head. "Man, I thought everyone eventually wanted kids." "Not everyone," Daniel said with a shrug. "We're happy with just us." There was an awkward pause, and then James laughed uncomfortably. "Well, talk to me in 6 months. See if you still feel that way after you see how great being a parent is." Maya and Daniel exchanged a glance, an entire conversation happening in that look. They'd heard this before too, the assumption that they'd change their minds one baby carrot after extended negotiation. And then bath time, which turned into an extended session of Sophie creating elaborate stories with her bath toys. "And then the mermaid princess saved the dolphin from the mean shark," Sophie narrated, making splashing sound effects that sent water over the edge of the tub. Maya sat on the bathroom floor, her back against the wall, monitoring but not interfering. This was Sophie's story, Sophie's play. Maya was just the facilitator, the safe presence that allowed the magic to unfold. When Sophie's fingers started to prune, Maya declared bath time over. Protested, of course. 4-year-olds protested everything. But Maya had learned long ago how to be firm and gentle simultaneously. "We need to dry off and put on pajamas," she said. "And then we have time for 2 stories before bed." 3 stories, Sophie countered. 2 stories. 2.5 stories? Maya laughed. 2 complete stories. Deal? Deal. Pajamas were a negotiation. Toothbrushing was a negotiation. But finally, Sophie was tucked into her bed, clutching her favorite stuffed elephant, looking up at Maya with sleepy eyes. Maya read Goodnight Moon and The Very Hungry Caterpillar, Sophie's warm weight pressed against her side, Sophie's breath gradually evening out. This was the moment that got her. Every time. The surrender of a child into sleep. The absolute trust it required. Sophie's eyelids fluttered closed during the caterpillar's chrysalis transformation, and by the time he emerged as a beautiful butterfly, she was deeply asleep. Maya sat there for another few minutes, just watching Sophie sleep, feeling that fierce, tender rush of affection that children inspired. Sophie's face was so peaceful, so perfect. Maya gently moved a strand of hair from Sophie's forehead, then carefully extracted herself from the bed. She left the door cracked open, the nightlight glowing softly, and went downstairs to clean up the dinner dishes and toys. Caroline arrived at 9:30, moving quietly so as not to wake Sophie. "How was she?" Caroline whispered. "Perfect," Maya whispered back. "Ate some dinner, played in the bath, went down easily with 2 stories. Caroline's eyes actually welled up. "Thank you. Seriously, thank you. I was so worried she'd give you trouble at bedtime." "She was great," Maya assured her. "Really." Caroline pulled out her wallet to pay Maya, and as she handed over the cash, she said, "You're so good at this. You and your husband don't have kids, right?" "Right. Do you want them?" Maya had learned to read these moments, to sense when someone was genuinely curious versus when they were being judgmental. Caroline seemed genuinely curious, and Maya had always liked her honesty and vulnerability. "No," Maya said. "We've decided not to have children." "Can I ask why? I mean, you can tell me it's none of my business." "It's okay." Maya leaned against the kitchen counter. "I love kids. I love spending time with them, caring for them, but I also love this moment, when I hand them back to you and go home to my own life. That's my favorite part of childcare, if I'm being honest. The return." Caroline laughed, a surprised burst of sound. "That's so honest and kind of refreshing." Maya worried she'd said too much, but then Caroline said softly, "I love Sophie, I do, but sometimes I wish I'd thought about it as carefully as you did, really examined what I wanted instead of just following the script. Do you regret having her?" "No, but I regret not understanding what I was signing up for. I regret the way motherhood has consumed everything else about me. I can barely remember who I was before Sophie." They stood in the quiet house, 2 women on different paths, finding an unexpected moment of honesty. "For what it's worth," Maya said, "I think you're a wonderful mother. Sophie is lucky to have you." "Thank you," Caroline said. "And thank you for being here, for helping, for being the person I can hand her back to so I can breathe for a few hours." As Maya drove home, she felt the familiar exhaustion that came after a full evening with a child. Not just physical tiredness, but emotional depletion. And this was just one evening, one bedtime routine. Parents did this every single day, every single night, for years. The thought made Maya's chest feel tight. At home, she found Daniel on the couch with a book, the house quiet and peaceful. He looked up and smiled when she walked in. "Successful return?" he asked. "The sweetest moment," Maya confirmed, sinking down next to him. "Sophie was great, but I am wiped out. One evening of that and I'm exhausted." Daniel put down his book and pulled her close. "And that's why we made the right choice." "Yeah," Maya said, closing her eyes and relaxing into his embrace. "Yeah, it is." Friday morning meant baby James. At 9 months old, he was in that delicious phase of early discovery. Everything was fascinating, everything went in his mouth, and his laugh was pure, unfiltered joy. Maya arrived at the Henderson house at 8 a.m. Rachel Henderson answered the door in her work clothes, bouncing James on her hip. "Thank God," Rachel breathed. "He's been up since 5:30. I'm running on fumes and approximately 9 gallons of coffee." Maya took James, who immediately grabbed a fistful of her hair and shoved it toward his mouth. "We'll be fine. Go to work, get some headspace." After Rachel left, Maya settled into the familiar routine with James. Playtime on his activity mat, where he grabbed at dangling toys with increasing coordination, a bottle which he drank while staring up at Maya with those impossibly huge eyes that babies had, a diaper change and nap, during which Maya folded the Hendersons' laundry and did their dishes. Small tasks that Rachel always thanked her profusely for, but which barely register as work to Maya. When James woke, they went for a walk in the stroller, Maya narrating everything they saw. "Look, James, a blue car. Can you see the blue car? And there's a dog, a big brown dog." James babbled in response, kicking his legs in excitement. At the park, Maya spread out a blanket and let James do tummy time while she sat beside him, offering toys and encouragement. Other parents, mostly moms, were there with their kids. One woman came over, her toddler trailing behind her. "He's adorable," the woman said, gesturing to James. "How old?" 9 months. "Such a sweet age. Is this your first?" "Oh, I'm his nanny." "Kids of your own?" "No, I don't." The woman waited, clearly expecting more. When Maya didn't elaborate, she pushed gently. "But you want them, I'm sure. You're so natural with babies." Maya had learned that sometimes the path of least resistance was just smile and nod. But today, after the conversation with Caroline last night, she felt like being honest. "Actually, no. My husband and I have chosen not to have children." The woman's eyebrows shot up. "Really? But you work with them." "I love working with children. I just don't want my own." "Well," the woman said, her tone cooling noticeably, "I guess that's your choice. But there's nothing like being a mother. You are missing out on the greatest love you could ever experience." Maya had heard this before, many times. The insistence that she was missing something essential, that she couldn't possibly know real love without children. "I have a lot of love in my life," Maya said evenly. "It just looks different than yours." The woman made a disapproving sound and returned to her own child. Maya sat with James, helping him grab at toys, feeling that familiar mix of frustration and resignation. Why did people feel entitled to judge her choices? Why couldn't they accept that different people wanted different things? When Rachel came home at 1 p.m., she looked marginally more energized. Maya had James fed, changed, and playing happily with his blocks. "You're a miracle worker," Rachel said, taking James from Maya's arms. "Seriously, I don't know what I'd do without you. Some mornings I fantasize about just running away, getting in my car and driving until I hit the ocean. No baby, no responsibilities, just freedom." "That's normal," Maya said gently. "All parents feel that way sometimes." "Do they? Because when I admitted that to my own mother, she acted like I was a monster." Rachel's voice cracked slightly. "She said she never once wanted to run away from me and my siblings, that motherhood was pure joy for her." Maybe it was. Or maybe she's rewriting history through a lens of nostalgia. Either way, your feelings are valid. "I love him," Rachel said, bouncing James on her hip. "I love him so much it hurts. But I'm also so tired, so depleted, and I feel guilty for feeling that way." You're allowed to love your child and also be exhausted by the demands of caring for him. Rachel looked at Maya with something like envy. "You know, sometimes I'm jealous of you. You get to do the fun parts, playing, reading books, watching him learn new things, and then you get to leave. You get to go home to your husband and your actual life. I know, that's why I chose this instead of motherhood." After she left, Maya sat in her car for a moment, thinking about Rachel's confession, the fantasy of running away, the guilt, the bone-deep exhaustion that seemed to be universal among the mothers Maya knew. She pulled out her phone and texted Daniel, extra grateful today for our choice. Coming home to you and only you." He responded quickly. "Same, love. Want to try that new sushi place tonight?" "Yes, please." Just like that. Spontaneous Friday night plans. No childcare to arrange, no bedtime to manage, no complications. Just two people who loved each other, making a simple decision about dinner. Perfect. Saturday was Maya and Daniel's day. No childcare, no work obligations. They slept until 9, luxuriously late, and made breakfast together in their pajamas. Scrambled eggs with herbs, toast with real butter, fresh fruit. They ate slowly, reading news on their tablets, occasionally sharing interesting articles with each other. "There's a new hiking trail that opened up about an hour north," Daniel said. "Want to check it out?" "Absolutely." They threw together a picnic lunch, grabbed their hiking boots, and were on the road by 11. No schedule to work around, no nap times to consider, no crying child in the backseat. Just an open road and an entire day stretching ahead of them. The trail was beautiful, winding through old-growth forest, with occasional clearings that offered views of the mountains beyond. They hiked for 3 hours, stopping at a scenic overlook to eat their lunch. "This is perfect," Maya said, leaning back on her hands, her face turned toward the sun. "It really is." Daniel was lying on his back, looking up at the sky through the tree branches. "I love Saturdays like this." "Me too. Just us, no obligations, nowhere we have to be." They were quiet for a while, enjoying the peace. Then Daniel said, "I talked to my brother yesterday. Lisa's pregnant again." Daniel's brother Mike and his wife Lisa already had 2 kids, ages 3 and 5. Maya waited, sensing there was more. Mike sounded not excited. He said it was a surprise pregnancy, that they weren't planning on a third. And then he said something that stuck with me. "What did he say?" He said, "I love my kids, but if I could go back and do it over, I think we would have stopped at 1, or maybe not had any at all." Maya sat up, looking at Daniel. "He said that?" "Yeah." And then he immediately backtracked, said he was just tired, that he didn't mean it. "But Maya, he did mean it. I could hear it in his voice." "That's sad," Maya said softly. "It is. But also, it makes me grateful that we really thought about this, that we made an intentional choice instead of just following the expected path." "Do you ever doubt it?" Maya asked. "Our choice?" "Sometimes I wonder what our kids would have been like, what they would have looked like, whether they'd have your laugh or my terrible sense of direction. But wondering isn't the same as regret." Maya's parents' house, which meant facing the questions again. Maya had warned Daniel in the car on the way over. "My mom's been especially persistent lately," she said, "so brace yourself." "We're a united front," Daniel reminded her, squeezing her hand. "We've got this." Her mother opened the door with a huge smile. "Maya, Daniel, you're just in time. Lily's been asking for you all morning." Lily, Maya's 7-year-old niece, appeared instantly. "Aunt Maya, Uncle Daniel, come see my new books." Maya let herself be dragged to the living room, Daniel following behind. They spent the next hour reading with Lily, Maya doing voices for all the characters, while Daniel held Lily's baby brother Marcus, who was drowsing contentedly against his shoulder. "You're so natural with them," Maya's mother said, appearing in the doorway. "Both of you. It's such a shame." "What's a shame?" Maya asked, though she knew exactly where this was going. "That you're not using those gifts. That you're choosing not to have children of your own." "Mom!" "No, let me finish. 4 years of marriage, Maya. 4 years. When your father and I have been married 4 years, you were already 2 years old. Don't you think it's time?" Maya felt Daniel's hand on her shoulder, a silent reminder that they were in this together. "Mom, we've talked about this," Maya said, keeping her voice calm. "Daniel and I have decided not to have children. It's not about timing. It's not temporary. It's our decision." "But you love children." "I do love children. That doesn't mean I have to be a mother." "I just don't understand," her mother said, and there were tears in her eyes now. "Why would you deny yourself, and me, the joy of children? Why would you waste your gift for caring for them?" "I'm not wasting anything," Maya said, frustration creeping into her voice despite her best efforts. "I work with children every day. I love them, care for them, help them grow. But at the end of the day, I return them to their parents. That's what works for me." "That's so selfish," her mother said, and the word hung in the air like a slap. "Excuse me?" "It's selfish. You're thinking only of yourself, of your own comfort and freedom, instead of doing what you were meant to do." Daniel stood up, carefully transferring Marcus to the nearby bassinet. "With all due respect, that's not fair. Maya works incredibly hard caring for other people's children. She brings joy and stability to multiple families. There's nothing selfish about knowing yourself well enough to make intentional choices about your life." "This doesn't concern you, Daniel." "It absolutely concerns me. Maya is my wife. We made this decision together. And frankly, I'm tired of you disrespecting our choice and suggesting that there's something wrong with us." Maya's father appeared in the doorway, drawn by the raised voices. "What's going on?" "Your daughter refuses to have children," Maya's mother said, as if this was news, as if they hadn't had this exact conversation a dozen times before. "That's their choice," Maya's father said quietly. He'd always been more accepting, more willing to let Maya live her own life. But she loves children. She's wonderful with them. It makes no sense. "Mom," Maya said, standing up,
facing her mother directly. "I love Daniel. That doesn't mean I want to marry every man who's kind to me. I love hiking. That doesn't mean I want to become a professional mountain climber. Loving something doesn't obligate me to structure my entire life around it. That's not the same thing. It is the same thing. I love spending time with children. I love playing with them, teaching them, caring for them. But I also I cherish the moment when I return them to their parents and go home to my own life, to my marriage, to my freedom. That's what makes me happy." "You'll regret it," her mother said, tears streaming down her face now. "You'll be 50 years old and realize you've missed out on the most important experience of life." "Maybe," Maya said, and she felt surprisingly calm saying it. "Maybe I will regret it, but it will be my regret to live with, my choice, my consequence. And I'd rather risk that than bring children into the world when I know I'd resent them." Her mother looked stricken. "You would resent your own children?" "Yes,